Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, everything's working. Phew, you always never know. Hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you for joining me at this late evening. Transmission's already in the chat. The transmission's still buzzing from the Bowie debut. Yes, of course. The wonderful Bowies and Spelljammers is finally out. Yes, and I'm really glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, I know Hamilton, my co-host for DM's Book Club, worked incredibly hard on that, and so massive props to Chloe, Taylor, Jeremy, all putting in hard work from there, and I turned up a little bit as well, as it turns out. Yeah, it was really fun to do, and I'm really glad you enjoyed it. Feel free, the transmissions. I'll put it in the chat now. You do not. There's absolutely no pressure. But if you go to that link tree, there is a link to our Discord. And I know if you join it, and I'm sure Hamilton will be thrilled to hear any accolades and praise, should you wish to. But there's absolutely no pressure to do so. But that's not, we could talk about Bowies as like an after-school special, but we're not going to do that. My name is Fiona, I use she, her pronouns, and this is Too Long Didn't Read Tabletop RPGs. And yeah, I just thought, sod it, it's the weekend, I could go to bed early. I've been basically all day, I've just been playing Baldur's Gate, which is wonderful. Super, thank you. Illithith Mask merch when, Crafty Cobbo? There is a link on Amazon where you can get that mask. We joked about it, and I got really too excited for it, and then mine turned up. And I don't know if Hamilton's ever going to wear his in the end, but I don't have it anymore. I think I donated it because I don't know where else I would wear it. But there's a great photo of us together that Hamilton took. It looks very arty, which I'll post in the Discord because that's quite great. But thanks for joining this for the Too Long Didn't Read Tabletop RPG streams. I'm just going to quickly introduce it again. So this is where I spend about an hour and a half or 2 hours, depending on how I feel, just going through an RPG that's caught my eye and just talk about it a little bit. I usually have a huge long list. It's about 244 RPGs, growing all the time, that I have in my back catalogue or something that interests me, and normally I'll just pick something, or I'll do a quick random roll, and we've got some really good ones. Yesterday or the day before, time is a weird soup, I did the Walking Dead quick start, or the starter set stuff. Didn't manage to finish it all completely, but then I had a quick look today, and it turns out I needn't have bothered. I did cover all the big bits, so I was like, ooh. But yeah, would highly recommend checking it out. Interesting enough, I still have the dice out here for some reason, but we're not talking about The Walking Dead by Freely today. Not at all. So the reason I picked this particular RPG, which is Fabula Ultima, for some reason my brain always has to have a pause in between the two words, Fabula Ultima, is because it was the People's Choice Award at Dicebreaker. They did their tabletop awards recently. People chose this one, and I was like, I've never really heard of it. I had the quick start, so we'll have a look at that. So that's what we're going to look at today. And I will just move over from Big Fiona Cam to Small Fiona. Oh, well, that's what it looks like. Of course, I was checking if the link worked. But if I get rid of that... Oh, don't see the background. There we go. So this is the website. So Fabula Ultima is published by needgames.it, which is Italy, so it's an Italy publisher. And it's written by Emanuele Galetto, Emanuele Galetto, that is the writer, and it is inspired by Japanese role-playing games. So you're thinking of your Final Fantasies, you're thinking of your Legend of Dragoons if you were like me and wanted the off-brand ones, but it's inspired by those sort of games, which is really cool. I'll be completely honest, I've only played a little bit of Final Fantasy, and a little bit of Kingdom Hearts to an extent, that sort of JRPG kind of games, because back in quotation marks, back in the old days, they used to have turn-based times, so you had to respond before, you had to really not only plan your moves and stuff, but you had to respond in certain times. I just couldn't keep up with that. I got too anxious about that sort of thing. But here is the website, needgames.it, if you want to check it out. Make sure I put it in the chat again. Now the commands are working, so try and check it out. So let's start by looking at the website. So this is your world, this is your story. Make your choice and fight for what you believe in. And yeah, as well, lots of got loads of accolades this year. So it got a winner of best game for the Ennies, and then winner of product of the year. So clearly, I did not know there was more accolades this year. So I'm really interested to see what it's about. Really, it also has some beautiful art. I really, again, very, you know what you're looking at, if you see what I mean. IS tabletop, Japanese role-playing game. It's got that style to it, which I think is beautiful, really evocative. 2 Ennies. As it's talking about the Ennies there, that's fine. This is your story. Fabula Ultima is a tabletop role-playing game inspired by Japanese-style console RPGs, or JRPGs. You and your friends will tell epic stories of would-be heroes and fearsome villains, set in fantasy worlds brimming with magic, wondrous locations, and uniquely bizarre monsters. Create your setting together. With 3 different styles as reference, your group can freely shape the world as they wish, including powerful kingdoms, small villages, major historical events, and people who inhabit these islands. A simple and intuitive rule set that evokes both gameplay and atmospheres from most beloved JRPGs, whilst all while encouraging players to proactively set goals and influence the story. No choice is without consequence. Amazing. Oh, sorry, it is so big on the screen. I should really zoom out. That's really unhelpful, isn't it? Let me zoom out a little bit. There we go. I'll move it over slightly to one side. Will any of it work? Yeah, a little bit. Go from there. A bestiary filled with monsters, demons, beasts, and more. From simple encounters to deadly bosses, our heroes will face many challenges. And then move it back across so I can see the rest of it. 15 classes to mix and match in order to create your favourite heroes. Inspired by video games, this modular growth system lets you design deep and unique characters. Choose your group type and embark on great adventures. I guess it's more at the forefront now that having these, obviously role-playing games, obviously we've got Baldur's Gate 3 out right now, right? So you have a group of adventurers going off to do stuff, so you're not singular, and that's what I know D&D does anyway. But maybe it's interesting how maybe this game, and Final Fantasy had an update recently, didn't they? They had a new game and a remake come out. So it's really in the zeitgeist, these sort of stories right now. Everything the Game Master needs to set the scene and accompany the group through marvellous, larger-than-life adventures. Advice, guidelines, and all tools required to bring the heroes' dark mirrors on stage. The villains! The full rulebook is 360 full-colour pages, beautifully illustrated by professional artists from all over the world. Big tick. And if you buy the core book, you get a free PDF version included, which is fantastic. And yet, published by Emanuele Galetto in 2022 by Need Games, which is great. And yeah, on this particular website, you can get, buy digital, buy in the US, buy in the UK, etc. Links to where you can get it for retailers. I obviously, look, there's a gallery as well. And yet you can get the free, the press start is what they call the quick start, which I love that as a concept. You can get it on Drive-Thru RPG, which is this very poorly designed website. Although it does look a lot better now, doesn't it? There you go, so that's what it looks like. And that's the front cover of that. Oh, well, this is the full game, actually, looking at it, because it's $17. It's actually, I don't think that's too much for 360 pages. Roughly, just over £15 just now? I think that's really good. And again, talks about the same thing as well, but let's look at go to the quick start, if there's anything different. Yep, so the quick start is free to download as well, so I'd highly recommend checking that out. And yeah, doesn't have anything else there, but look at that, look, they've got an article out. All looks good as well. And yeah, that's all I have to say, because again, I don't really know much about it per se. I do know, looking on, oh, you can't see it, typical, turn it over. So yeah, the core book is there. There's also something called Atlas, so Fabula Ultima Atlas High Fantasy. I believe that is a setting of some description. Read more. Will guide you through a world of ancient mysteries, breathtaking views, incredible magic, and powerful beings. Ooh, let's move that back over. Everyone can read together. Like heroes of legend and myth, your character will start from humble origins, and set off towards a glorious fate, eventually rising high enough to challenge the gods in true JRPG style. Fantastic. You get a few more character classes, which is great. Locations. Works. And new optional rules for bringing more characters. Oh wow. And then this is also 200 pages as well. Gosh darn, that's quite a lot of stuff, isn't it? For roughly about $14, so what, 13, maybe 12 quid? Not bad either. So yeah, you get a lot for it, which is good. But let's just dive right in, shall we? If I put up my Adobe Reader. And we'll go straight into the quick start, or the press start of the document. So this document is 52 pages, which is a good length, I think, just again looking at it, and already has a fabulous starting image, do you not think? Again, that sense of adventure looking out, I can imagine that's like the beginning of the game as you come into playing it. You can imagine like titles, roles. It says Fabula Ultima coming up there, so that's great. And also airships. Yeah, love a good airship. There's a floating. It's floating in the sky as well. You can see it over there. Anyway, enough about that. So, oh, how cool is that? Start here. Can everyone see? Yeah, zoom in a little bit more, and put onto pan. All good. Welcome to Press Start, the tutorial scenario for Fabula Ultima. Fabula Ultima is a tabletop role-playing game, or tabletop RPG, designed to recreate the wondrous worlds, characters and stories seen in console video games such as the Bravely Default series, Kingdom Hearts, Octopath Traveler, which I do have and I've not played it, I hear it's good, and the legendary Final Fantasy series, also known as Japanese control role-playing games and often abbreviated to as JRPGs. This booklet has been designed to be as accessible as possible. These 2 pages tell you everything you need to know before you start playing. Once you're set, you can simply start reading scene 0 setup on page 4, and that's it. Oh, so this is a whole scenario. That's impressive. I love that. Okay, well we'll get as far as we need to in that, and maybe not do too many spoilers. I didn't realise that was a thing. So what do you need to play? So you need a group of 4 to 5 people, including yourself, a photocopy of the character sheet. These can be found on pages 6 to 13 or downloaded. Okay, so it must be pre-generated characters for this. Something that allows you to take notes. 1 or more set of polyhedral dice. Fair enough. Ideally, you would want 2 of the following dice, so 2d6, 2d8, 2d10, and 2d12. Ooh, no d20 there. Exciting. And you get a little description of what they look like. Visual description, that is. Oh, what a great image. I love it. I also think with JRPGs as well, you always have very beautiful character portraits, which are very evocative, and they really tell a story with that kind of background. Like the one I always go to, because I didn't play Final Fantasy as a kid, I played Legend of Dragoon, which was a mixture of like big war happening between like the gods and the people. The villain was called Lloyd, which I just think is a cracking name for a villain. And this idea that you were collecting these dragoon stones, you would turn into these creatures almost like a Power Rangers style, but a little bit of Sailor Moon as well, and it was absolutely incredible. And I remember crying my eyes out at one of the early fights, like on disc 1, where one of your companions dies. Minor spoiler there, but that was brutal, because I fought so hard and I'd leveled him up so much, and then he just died, and I was like, plot. It's over 4 discs as well. It's when you had to change things out for the discs to go. When you had to go back and forth between islands, you had to between disc 4 and disc 3. Like, anyway, what is a role-playing game? In a role-playing game, a group of people play together to create a story. They do so by having a conversation and describing the actions of the characters they control, or literally playing the role of those characters. How do I role-play? Role-playing is pretty simple. When you role-play, you make decisions for the character or characters you control, describing what they do and establishing their goals and objectives in the story. Cooperating with the players who are playing with you, expressing your creativity, and making your collaborative story as memorable as possible. And finally, remember to respect everyone's taste and creativity and be a fan of other people's ideas. How cute is that? Nice, free, simple sort of like principles to give to someone. Like, I don't know how to roleplay, what do I have to do? And not mentioning maths at all, which I always think is really good. And then I can see at the bottom there, why do I need rules? Why me? I could just talk. Much like with video games and board games, characters have numbers and abilities that represent their strengths and weaknesses. You will often roll dice to determine whether an action is successful or ends up having unforeseen circumstances. Or consequences. I don't know why I said circumstances there. Unlike videos and board games, however, the possibilities of a role-playing game are endless. There is no single approach to a situation, and the story will gradually emerge from everyone's decisions, combined with an element of chance. In other words, you cannot and should not try to predict what will happen. I mean, you can try as a GM, but it's really difficult. Really difficult. Okay, setup. I wonder if this particular person, I wonder if that's like the game guide or something that they've put in. Oh no, never mind. It's just a nice title image, which is fair. Now that you're all gathered, let's do some quick preparations for the game. Choose the roles. One of you will take on the role of the game master, whilst everyone else will take on the role of a player controlling a player character. God, I wish you would come up with really cool names for like master of ceremonies or storyteller, like game master. Read the descriptions of these roles before you decide. Regardless of your choice, your goal in this game is to create a heroic and fantastic story whilst having a great time together. If you are the game master, if you've drawn the short straw, you read the text of this booklet aloud and help everyone perform the various steps indicated by the scenario, which starts on page 14. Being mindful that some pages contain secret information only you should read, and these pages are identified by a red colour. Amazing. That's really cool, actually. If you got the rules baked into a scenario, I know I'm always like reading stuff aloud, and I'll be like, oh, I have to stop suddenly because you know there's like the villain is hiding behind something. So to identify them in a way, be like, hey, read this before you read it aloud. That's really cool. I would say maybe not a red colour, just because of the accessibility, like red-green blindness, perhaps. Again, we haven't got to a page yet, so we don't know what it's going to look like and how obvious it's going to be. Like, don't read this bit to your players. But I love this idea of identifying it in some way. Maybe I would have it as like a symbol or an image of some sort that's obvious at the top. But I love that idea. I think that's really clever. Enrich the scenes and descriptions provided by this scenario with your own creativity, and be a fan of both the players and their characters. I'll be like, boo players. I'm always boo players. Roleplay as various characters that the heroes will encounter during the scenario, and these are called non-player characters or NPCs, expressing their personality and goals. The players. If you are a player, you will roleplay as one of the 4 characters provided in this scenario. See the next page. Experiment with your character's unique abilities and cooperate with the rest of the group during difficult situations. Create occasions for your fellow heroes to shine. Boundaries. We love those. Make the character yours by coming up with unique details about their past and identity, and steer the story in interesting directions through your character's words and actions. Nice. Very cool. Like that. Hello, friend. It's JC Darcy. I hope you're doing well, JC Darcy. Thank you for joining us. I hope I didn't wake anyone up by doing that, by the way. We're looking at Fabula Ultima, the press start document for that, and it's all inspired by Japanese role-playing games, so maybe it's something of interest. I don't know. We were just about to start it. It seems to be like it's a scenario baked with the rules set in, so we're just going to... Minor spoilers, it turns out, but I hope you're doing well. Choose your character. In the full release of Fabula Ultima, it lets you create a custom player character that suits the type of story you want to see at the table. For the sake of simplicity, this tutorial provides you 4 pre-made characters designed to help you learn the rules of the game and discover its potential. I will say I do like the using the terminology of like a JRPG. So this is the tutorial mode, and we're going to go on do this. I wonder if we'll have the same when we look at the character sheets, and maybe there's going to be, well, I don't know. Like, again, what was it, like turns this sort of thing? I don't know. We'll find out. But I do like that, calling this a tutorial, and like press start to begin. I think that's good. If you have less than 4 player characters, make sure one person plays Clarimondi. This is this the main character? Ooh, I can already see. You can find sheets for all 4 characters starting on the next page and on fabulaultima.com. So Blair, the perceptive heir to the throne of Dunova. Sorry, brain. Blair can support allies in battle with words of hope and encouragement. When necessary, they can unleash a powerful light element magic against the enemy. Gender-neutral pronouns. Liking that. Very much liking that. And sounds like they're important to the thing, so all good. Then we have Cassandra. No last name Cassandra, because she's a badass. Look at that. Look at those great eyes. Nice orange eyes. Strong and agile, Cassandra is a former captain of the Sky Rider Force and a master of spear combat. She can weaken enemies and strike at flying targets using her elemental powers. Very good. Oh god, that's a lot of energy for almost 10 PM. Yes, apologies. I'm super interested. We met the devs at UK Games Expo and they were lovely and the game seems fab. Well, yes, indeed. Well, I was just saying at the beginning of the stream, they won 2 Emmys. They won Game of the Year and Product of the Year. And they've just recently got People's Choice at Dicebreaker. So I was like, oh, I've not heard of this. And like I was just saying, like I have very limited experience with Final Fantasy in general, as a concept. I've never played Final Fantasy. Like the most I've played is Kingdom Hearts. You know, so it's just interesting to me, like this sort of in the zeitgeist. I was certainly Final Fantasy's coming back with a vengeance just now, so I thought let's check it out. So yeah, I agree. But it's cool that you got to make the devs at UK Games Expo. Yeah, because already I'm like really loving this quick start or press start even. Then we have Edgar. You can tell he's an inventor because he's got goggles on. Classic inventor move. A young inventor who survived a mysterious incident. Edgy. Edgar is clever and resourceful. His custom-made pistol can target multiple foes at once and inflict negative status effects. Very good. Okay. Lavigna Fallbright. Solemn and imposing. That's me. Lavigna was a princess of the kingdom of Armoria, conquered by the Empire. She can channel her life force into a massive greatsword. Can't we all? And is the most resilient member of the group. Here was what we were talking about before. So when you see this icon, it means that this part of your character, it's locked until you reach the listed scene. Don't look at it before that moment. Okay. But I like that, locking up characters and stuff. I guess, again, maybe it's going to introduce you to the bits as you go through them in this tutorial example. Very cool. There we go, it's they, them. Yay, amazing. Oh, I see. Look at that. So, sorry, let me zoom out so everyone can see. Sorry, I keep forgetting. Got a little bit more accessible, Fiona. So, looking at the character sheet, again, looks very clean at the top. Then we've got, so the first, I'm guessing it's by scene, right? So we have probably 6 scenes in total. Possibly more, but already it's broken down, so you're like, this is the top bit, so this is the most important bit. Next on to traits and bonds, those are important for a scene 2. Fabula points, amazing. Inventory points as well, so let's have a quick look. Oh, and Zenith as well, starting Zenith. Oh, I guess that's currency. It only comes into play later on, that's fair enough. Look at that outfit, incredible outfit. I'm alright, brotherly doubtful. I'm fine, I don't need your promotion. I've got all the promotion I need. So we've got attributes and status effects. So we've got dexterity, insight, might, and willpower. So these are our 4 attributes. I guess we've got status effects here. Interesting. So you will assign a dice value to each of these things. Interesting. So I'm guessing obviously maybe the higher the dice, the better you are, but more chance to fail, I guess. And then we've got identity, theme duty, and the origin, bonds, Fabula points. Gain a Fabula point when you roll a fumble, and whenever instructed by a scenario. Oh, and there's a little glossary. Gotta love a glossary. Hang on, let's zoom in a little bit so we're not. So we've got HR, which is high roll. The higher of the 2 numbers is shown by the dice in a check. A fumble is where both dice show 1. Oof, God. Critical success is a check where both dice rolled is the same number, and that number is 6 or higher. So you get a double 6, a double 7, a double 8, double 9, double 10, etc. Ooh, interesting. Die size is the number of faces on the die, so yeah, that makes sense. Die value, so D6, D8, D10, D12. So we all have that. Those are the 4 main dice we're going to use in this game. Vulnerability, HP loss is doubled, and then resistance, HP loss is halved, rounded down. Okay, so that's nothing to do up there, but I guess that's just interesting. Inventory points, we have 6. Oh, I wonder if this is going to be like, we can spend these points at any point to get these items as we go along in the scenario. That's pretty cool, so you don't have to already have it in your backpack. So you got a remedy, so one creature recovers 50 hit points. How many hit points do we have? Does not say. Unless it's going to be, Fiona, there's 2 pages for this. Hang on. Sorry, it's silly Fiona. Okay. But it's, that's a bit annoying. That's typical. Alright, Zenith, fine. Well, let's go into that second part of that page. We won't look at all of them for sake of brevity, but I was like, okay, so we've got hit points. Okay, Blair only has 45 max hit points, and MP, I presume magic points, is 60. Initiative modifier, they're not very quick, are they? Got -2. They have a defense of 9, but the magic defense is 12. Interesting. And equipment, this is what they've got on them. So that equipment's different to inventory, that's good to know. Oh gosh, lots of text here for encourage. During a conflict scene, you may use an action and spend mind points, apologies, to choose another creature that is able to hear and understand you. That creature regains 10 hit points, and uses dexterity, insight, might, or willpower. The creature chooses a chosen tribute as 1 die size higher until the start of your next turn. Oh, how interesting. Lux, offensive spell. Target up to creature is... it doesn't really tell. Oh, it's a light damage. Okay, yeah, it makes sense because Lux is light in Latin. Interesting. Not as much description about what that does or what it looks like, but again, you can't really have that much in character sheet. And types of actions you've got, what you can do, attack with your steel dagger, guard, gain resistance to all damage until you start the next turn. You also may choose to cover another creature. Gosh, this the heir to the throne is very throwing themselves away in front of things. Oh, but a flash of insight. Oh, so you must go up to 8. Scenes then. Interesting. When you roll a 13 or higher when performing the study action, you may ask the game master a single question about the target of your investigation. The GM answers truthfully. If there's no predetermined answer, the GM invents one on the spot, and that answer becomes truth from now on. It's canon. Dun dun dun. Excellent. Alright, cool. Oh wow. And I wish I could have thighs like this and that wear, well, those are like half tights, aren't they? I was gonna say she doesn't have a foot. Turns out she does have a foot, it's just hidden. That's a gorgeous image there. Oh, Edgar. Oh, he does have feet, I'm glad. Oh look, has he got I think he's got a prosthetic arm. How awesome is that? That's very cool. I must say, I always love when inventor types or artificer types, they always have these bags on their legs carrying stuff. Like, I just feel like that's so dangerous to have. I would lose, if I had my phone like that, or my keys, they'd be gone by the time I got down to the tube. They'd be broken and gone. Oh, look, how cool is she? You know, is this the mummies? Like, when did you know you were bisexual? Yeah, absolutely. But damn, look at that armor, that sword, absolutely incredible. Oh, yeah, Nightbot's like, what are you doing? Yeah, I agree, Darcy. Absolutely gay panic. Ah. Scene 1. We unlock it. Let's go for us. Let's do it. So we're only on page 14, and we don't know the rules yet, which is exciting. So let's go for it. Our story begins on a small airship sailing above the forest surrounding the city of Dunova. Piloting the airship is an old man named Leon, who's begrudgingly accepted to transport you near the ancient ruins known as the Crag of Megdio. A once great city of magic that was devastated by a magical cataclysm in the past. The crater still hides many powerful and terrifying secrets, and troops from the neighbouring Empire of Ilonia have been spotted in the area. Why are our heroes heading there? Well, that's a question Blair can answer. Their father, King Roland, great name for a king, great name for a dad, decided not to take action against Ilonia, but Blair disobeyed his orders and gathered a group of exceptional individuals to personally investigate the situation. At this point, ask each player where they are on the airship and what they're doing. Feel free to add details to the airship during the narration. Does it have sails? Does it have propellers? What does Leon look like? The tops of the trees part abruptly, and you can see the crater below, an oddly circular pit descending into the ground, filled with remains of ancient stone buildings and once glorious waterways that crumble towards its depths. Just as Leon prepares to descend, you hear a rumbling noise from the depths of the crater. Oh dear. Suddenly, a great beam of purplish energy shoots from below, hitting the left side, or the port side, of the airship. In a moment, the magical energy has faded, but the vessel definitely didn't like it. Son of a caterol. Oh, cool. Snaps Leon. I swear this is the last time I drive a bunch of adventurers around. We'll be lucky to get down there in one piece. You understand that the airship is far too damaged and a crash landing is inevitable, but each of you still finds ways to make it less disastrous. It's time for the player characters to make a check. Dun, 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 dun. Checks. Here we go. Checks are the basic mechanic in Fabula Ultima. We use checks to determine whether the characters manage to accomplish their objectives in a scene without suffering dangerous consequences. As the airship spirals towards the ground, ask each player to describe what their character is doing does to mitigate the dangers of the crash. Do they attempt to contain a magically overloaded engine? Do they help Leon steer the wheel? Do they rush to protect someone? As the Game Master, you can start from the player's descriptions and use them to decide which attributes their player check will be relied on. Checks always rely on a character's attribute. So dexterity, which is abbreviated as dex, is speed and coordination. Insight, which is ints, intuition and observation. Might, abbreviated to mig, strength and toughness. And then finally willpower, which is wulp, charisma and determination. The character's affinity with an attribute is represented by a die size. So a D6 is pretty bad. A D8 is average, a D10 is very good, and a D12 is as good as anyone can get. It's always attempted to describe approaches that best suit your character's attributes. However, don't be afraid to do the opposite if you feel it would make the story more interesting. Performing checks. Each check will always involve 2 dice, and the dice you roll are based on the attributes your character will be using for the action in question. For example, if Cassandra performs a check using her dexterity and might attributes, indicated as dex and mig in the game, she would roll a d10 and a d8 and add them together. Oh, okay. Oh, so you're going to get them to do 2 attributes. Oh, that's interesting. So when you do a check. Sometimes it makes sense for a character to only use 1 attribute in a given situation. When this happens, you roll the corresponding die twice. When they perform a mig check, they roll 2d8 and add them together. Okay, so you always roll 2 die. Okay. The Game Master, now you know the basics, have each character perform a check using the attributes that you feel would be appropriate for the approach they have described. Very cool. Now, difficulty level, or DL, is an abstraction of how critical the check is within the scene and how hard it is to accomplish the objective. An easy check has a difficulty level of 7, average has a difficulty level of 10, and a hard check has a difficulty level of 13. You establish the difficulty level of the check based on the context of the scene, and sometimes the difficulty level will be set by a special rule or skill. During the scene, which is I guess because it's the first scene, difficulty level of 10 for all checks. I like that. They feel it's free on each side, so 7, 10, 13. So yeah, I think that works. Determining the outcome. If the result of a check is higher than or equal to difficulty level, it's a success. Otherwise, it's a failure. Failure may mean that the character doesn't get what they want or that a sudden complication arrives. The Game Master must always communicate the general consequences of success or a failure before the dice is rolled. Oh, interesting. Having to be it's interesting because I always do that afterwards because I'm always usually improv because I want them to succeed. But I guess telling them it's a bit like the Jason Cordova thing of oh, it's much worse. When I want this to happen. What do you think is the worst thing that can happen? Oh, this. That's much worse than that if you fail. So always good. A check can also be a fumble or a critical success. A fumble happens when both the dice in a rolled in the check show a 1. This is an automatic failure and should be narrated as a stroke of bad luck. Meanwhile, a critical success is when both dice show the same number and that number is 6 or higher. This is always an automatic success. Simply put, you put a critical success if you roll a double 6, double 7, double 8, double 9, double 10, double 11, or a double 12. Incredible. Modifiers. Sometimes a check includes a modifier such as a +2 bonus or a -1 penalty. Remember to add or subtract them from your total when determining a success or a failure. Consequences! Now that you know how checks work, you can determine whether each character succeeded or failed on their check and narrate the consequences. For the GM for this particular scenario, look for the outcomes of various checks and use them to describe the fate of the airship. The impact is inevitable, but if at least 2 checks were successful, you should describe the group managing to contain the damage, preserving most of the hull's integrity. A large part of the Game Master's role lies in moving back and forth between narration and the mechanics of the game, making sure both go in hand, making the player characters look like the heroes they are. quite interesting how this scenario, and again, maybe it always happens with when you have the rule set in baked into the scenario. For this one, obviously it's addressing the GM, but it feels like it's a GM for the first time, perhaps, or early. Yeah, obviously for the system it will be, but for anyone that's running RPGs for the first time, maybe it's looking at that audience of people who are coming from JRPGs into playing them with their friends and making their own world and stuff. So I really like that, actually, and it feels it doesn't seem to be like patronizing at all. I feel like, okay, this makes sense, and I really like this. Like rolling other dice at art d20s, rolling 2 of them. Again, I'm a big fan of doubles, like that, double 6, double 7, etc. I think that's really cool in terms of critical successes. I would make sure I would have that on maybe a piece of paper just so the players would remember that was it. For the sake of this tutorial, every player who failed the check suffers at least one status effect amongst the following. So dazed, shaken, slow, or weak. See below. The game master should describe how the player's actions lead to a particular status effect. Someone who tried to repair the engine might suffer dazed due to a magical short circuit, or someone who tried to keep the steering wheel in check might be weak due to fatigue. If all the characters succeed, make sure you read the explanation for the effects below. So once the game master has described the ship landing, move on to the next scene. So yeah, I presume these will come up later. Ooh, let's look at this. The status effects can be caused by spells, natural disasters, enemy attacks, and more. Each status effect temporarily lowers the die size of one or more of the character's attributes. The daze lowers your insight, enrage lowers your dexterity and insight. Poisoned lowers your might and willpower insight. Shaken lowers your willpower, slow lowers your dex, and weak lowers your might. I think enraged and poisoned, they are, if I go to one of the character sheets, let's go to this one. Let's go to you can see it there. It's sort of like, I guess if you have slow and dazed. Oh no, actually that's a cool. I see now. So if you click the slow one, it's related to dexterity. So yeah, it goes down. I see now. They designed that in a really cool way. So yeah, the enraged stuff, that's going to be your dex, and your insight is going to be down by 1 die size. Ooh, I'm guessing, does it go down to a D4 then if you've got a D6? If you've got dazed? We'll find out. No doubt, it'll tell me. Back we go. Consequences. Oh. Of course I didn't roll down enough. Oh, you can never go below a D6. Different state effects can below the same attribute are cumulative, but you can never go below a D6. I think you should get a D4. You should. But that's the lowest you can go, because no one ever has a D4. But anyway, if this character is already weak and then becomes poisoned, they might still count as it. You will learn how to recover from status effects later on in the scenario. Scene 1 ends here. Ba -ba -ba -ba. Scene 2 unlocks. The airship has crashed, its hull wedged into the dirt and muck at crater's edge. It's clear that the vessel won't be flying anytime soon. Hint, hint, players. And from the centre of the pit, you can see irregular pulses of glowing energy. The source of the purple light is still active. If at least 2 players succeeded on their check during the previous scene, the hull is in decent condition, and Leon might be able to get the ship flying in a day. In a day? Oh. Otherwise, wait, is it just Leon on this airship? That's pretty bad. Otherwise, the airship needs extensive repairs, which could take a week or more. This is a good example of meaningful long-term consequences for a failed check. Might not be a problem now, but having to go back by foot to Denova is its own challenge. If any of the players are suffering from a status effect, Leon will rummage around inside the airship for a few minutes and finally emerge with a bag of potion and remedies. What a good guy, Leon. All the players will immediately recover from all status effects. Yeah, you better, Nightbot. Beep boop beep. This is one way the characters can recover from status effects, by receiving assistance from a helpful non-player character who can heal them via potions, medicines, or magic. Basically a heal bot, fair enough. Leon looks at you, scratching his head. Well, this is a mess, all right. Pretty sure you got your work cut out for you down there, too. Nods towards the centre of the crater. The plot's that way. I'll survey the damage and see what can be fixed. Might need a hand or 3 later, so you better get back here in one piece. In fact, the best way you can help me right now is by shutting down whatever caused that beam of light. Plot. I'm no adventurer, but I'll gladly leave that to you. Fair enough. This sudden crash landing wasn't what the heroes had in mind when they left Denova, but things tend to go in unexpected ways when you're the protagonist of the stories. Speaking of which, it's time to know our player characters a little better. Unlock this bit. Traits. While a character's attributes represent their affinity towards different approaches to a challenge, traits are narrative concepts that make your character unique. We have three sort of separate things here. So we've got identity, which represents what the characters currently sees themselves as. The theme, which represents the dominant narrative force that drives the character's story. And origin is where the character came from. In the full version of the game, the players can write their traits freely and may change their character's identity and theme throughout the story. This constant process of change and growth and transformation is among the most important aspects of Fabula Ultima. Below and on the next page, you can find a brief explanation of each character's traits, followed by a set of questions for the player currently controlling that character. Oh, fantastic. If you are a player, these questions represent an opportunity to make these characters yours and express who they are beyond their numbers and skills on the character sheet. This is also where you get to shape a major part of the story and the world it takes place in. If you are the game master, these questions let you know more about the characters and the world they live in. Make sure to take a note of the player's answers. Use them to enrich your descriptions and describe the story around the characters at the table. This is quite nice, isn't it? So instantly, the thing that strikes me is that the players know what the main mechanic is, and we've already tested that, and now it's like, and now let's talk about your characters. I think sometimes we get lost in creating the characters, and we spend a lot of energy on creating characters before a game and coming up with a really cool concept, and then you get stuck about the mechanic. So here we know what the mechanic is, we've done the first bit, and now we're going to turn to, go to you. What's your character like in this moment after, a time where they're stranded, especially if they've had an airship crash, what's happening now? So I really love that. If we look at Blair is the heir to the throne of Denova, and you believe that it is your duty to protect the people and stop the Elonian Empire from seizing control of the crater. Your father, the king, or King Roland, I do think of Borderlands when I think of the name Roland, I will say, thinks otherwise and ordered you not to abandon the royal palace. So, how did this crater come to be? Oh, it's not really about you. How interesting. What disaster turned a proper city like Megiddo, home to the greatest magic in the world, into a sunken mass of ruined buildings? What terrible secret do you fear the Elonians might uncover here? Is your position as an heir an honour or a burden? When your father forbade you from taking action against Elonia, was he trying to protect you? So I like how you've got a little bit of world building before you turn to the characters. So that's really cool. What did they think? What disaster befell this place before we get there? How great is that? We'll say that final question though. When your father forbade you from taking action against Elonia, was he trying to protect you? I guess the answer would be, well, obviously yes, right? But then what do you say for no? I don't know. I guess, yeah, interesting. Yeah, I like that. And it's quite short and to the point. They're about the scenario. It's not too big. I wonder if you get that. I guess it depends on the character classes. Maybe you get questions about that. What does Cassandra's one say? You're the former captain of the Skyriders, elite soldiers of Stormkeep. You came here after hearing rumours of a woman with a white spear amongst the Elonians. The same spear that your mentor Desdemona used to wield. Bah, bah, bah. The idea she might have sided with Elonia fills you with doubt. Maybe this is another thing as well. You know how JRPGs, when you read the text of them, they do embolden or change the colour of the most important bits of the information to the story so that you understand it? That's quite fun. Desdemona left the Stormkeep after a violent death of her brother Tristan. What was your relationship with the two of them? How did Tristan die? Why have you abandoned your position as captain? Oh, excellent. Edgar is you're a young inventor from the village of Pemble, where you survived a terrible accident. You rebuilt your right arm using Magitech science, the same that allows Elonia to create robotic soldiers. Oh, cool. Even so, you hope to learn more about Magitech and use it to make the world a better place. Oh, very much like well, not really like Full Metal Alchemist, but yeah. What happened in Pemble? Why did you leave the village afterwards? Due to Elonia's actions, Magitech will forever be associated with the war, but at least they are not sending living people into battle. What are your thoughts on the Empire? Bit intense for a young cheeky chappy who's just like, I've just rebuilt my arm. Lavigna is a princess without a kingdom. Your home, Armoria, was conquered by Elonia. Powerless, you witness the Empire take everything you held dear, including your loved ones. Your heart is heavy with guilt, and you will do anything in your power to save Denovia from a similar fate. Why did Elonia attack Armoria? Armoria, yeah. Armoria. What powerful weapon or magical artifact did they take from your kingdom? Armoria's, words are not my strong point this morning. Oh. Dark metal is known as one of the best protections in the world, and your armor was a precious gift. Who gifted it to you, and what is your relationship with them? Nice. Again, so you got a bit of like world building, and then something that connects you to that world building. Bonds. A character's trait defined who they are. But to grow stronger, heroes need connections. They need to feel emotions towards others. In the game, this is represented by bonds. In the full version of the game, each character may have up to 6 bonds. However, in this tutorial, the limit is 3. Other players have a chance to see each other in action, have answered questions about who they are and why they're here. Each player should create a bond with the other player. So it makes sense you only have 3, because there's only 3 other characters bar yourself. Choose to create a bond with another player character. Choose someone that left an impression on you during the first scene. This bond starts with 1 emotion. A bond can have up to 3 emotions, each one of them choosing from the following pairings: either admiration or inferiority, loyalty or mistrust, affection or hatred. For example, you might have a bond of inferiority and affection towards someone, but you cannot have a bond of loyalty and mistrust. Yeah, fair enough. It makes no sense. He's very flip-flopping on that relationship you have. Note that the same bond might have positive and negative emotions. Do not shy away from complex feelings, because they're exactly the kind of drama you want to see in this game. Oh, I love that little bit of in-party tension. I love it. Strength of a bond. The number of emotions you can have in a bond is known as that bond's strength, which can range from a minimum of 1 to a maximum of 3. So, for example, a bond of inferiority and mistrust has a strength of 2. Right now, the bond you create only has 1 emotion. Which means its strength is 1, but later on, you'll be able to add new emotions or form more bonds. So there's not much in that second scene. You just get a little chitty-chat a little bit, which is fine. I guess it makes sense, because you want to test out the bonds and the emotion stuff, like on that character sheet. That makes absolutely more sense. Scene 3. Unlocked. Shadows. The scene changes. We now see inside an ancient building, perhaps a temple. It's a dark room illuminated by a dim purple glow. Supporting the roof is a massive bronze pillar, decorated with ancient symbols. This pillar is filled with cracks, which are seeping rays of intense energy. Oh dear. We hear the clacking of armoured heels on the stone floor, and then we see a hand approach the pillar. It's wrapped in a silver gauntlet. Scientists in Elonia were right, says a feminine voice says. The compass was left buried here ever since the disaster. Now we have it, dear brother. Now I bring you back for good. 2 shadows stand against the purple light. One is massive, like a giant clad in armour, and the other is shorter and thinner, wielding a long spear. It seems our heroes don't have much time left. That is proper Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Love it. In Fabula Ultima, this is known as a gamemaster scene. It's a scene like any other, but it doesn't involve the player characters and often takes simultaneously with the hero's actions. This is something I do in my games. I use it as like a epilogue to a scene. I call them what you didn't see, because it doesn't involve the players. But if they've missed a role or something, I would still want the players to get the information in some way. So this is such a cool storytelling mechanic. It's a technique. I really like it. The Game Master uses these scenes to set the mood and build suspense. They are great when you need to foreshadow or show an antagonist in action. Now that the main antagonist of the scenario has been reduced, it's time to talk about villains and Fabula points. So in Fabula Ultima, the villains act as the player character's dark mirror, formable antagonists whose actions are placing the world in danger. Villains follow a few special rules, but we'll do all those later. For now, know that they're the most important non-player character in the game. Fabula points. They're what make player characters special. A freshly created player character receives 3 Fabula points. Afterwards, you gain 1 Fabula point whenever you roll a fumble on a check, or a villain enters the scene. Since the Game Master scene just took place and featured 2 villains, every player character now has 5 Fabula points at their disposal. Make a note of this on the character sheets. I certainly will. Ooh, cinematic. I agree. I love that. From now on, the player characters can spend Fabula points in the following ways. After performing a check, as long as they didn't roll a fumble, you may spend 1 Fabula point to invoke one of your traits, so identity, theme, or origin, and re-roll either one or both dice and use the new rolls. Nice. After performing a check, spending 1 Fabula point to invoke one of your bonds and add the strength of that bond, which is the number of emotions are tied to it, to the result of the check. You can only do this once per check. When you invoke a trait or a bond, explain how that element helps your character defy destiny, separating the player from the character. In Fabula Ultima, there's a big difference between the player and the character they portray. The Game Master scenes are a great way to demonstrate that. The player, this is what I was just talking about. As a player, you have seen that scene, but your character doesn't know anything about it. Instead, the scene exists to build anticipation and gives them an idea of what the villain is like. It is important to remember that when you play this game, you are simultaneously the author's protagonist and the audience of the emerging story. For example, if a player character is keeping a secret from the rest of the group, it's better for everyone at the table to know about it. This allows you to create an interesting scene and ultimately reveal it in a meaningful way. 100%. Oh, I love that. I love that. I can imagine, like, again, creating that story and be like, okay, I'm going to give you a moment to do something. And they go, okay, I drop my hat of disguise and I'm someone completely different. Everyone's going to be like, oh, what? That's so cool. And yeah, then scene 3 ends there. Okay, so that, again, not really anything for the players to do, but it's a really cool scene. So you can get through this quite quickly, I guess. That's quite good. Scene 4, unlock the descent. Now, let's return to our heroes. Doodle-doo. There's no clear path towards the bottom of the crater. The place is littered with rubble, collapsed buildings, and shattered columns. The whole area whispers of the lives that were lost here. A maze of ruins bathed in ominous purple light coming from a large building several hundred meters below where you are. From now on, the Game Master should base their descriptions on the crater given by Blair's player during Scene 2. How cool! The crater is a veritable maze, but the source of the purple light is relatively easy to identify. Still, can the heroes manage to get down there unharmed? When several characters work together towards the same goal, the Game Master can require a group check. Great image again. So, group checks follow these steps. They'll decide which player character will act as the leader. This person will be the last to perform the check, and their result will determine the consequences of the action. The leader describes their approach to the situation, which allows the Game Master to establish the attribute and difficulty level of the check. The other player characters will perform a support check. This check uses the same attributes as the leaders, but has a fixed difficulty of 10. For each player who succeeds on their support check, the leader will get a +1 bonus to the result of their check. If any of these characters have a bond with their leader, add their single highest strength amongst the bonds to the leader's check as well. Single highest strength. Okay, I see, yeah. So not only could you get up to, say in this example, like +3, if everyone gets over their support check, you could also get like I can say right now would be, you only have 1 emotion, so another one, so it could be a 4 for this particular scenario. Finally, the leader performs their check and the Game Master narrates the consequences based on the result. These consequences will apply to everyone who took part in the check. If you are the leader, you have a big responsibility. Your approach to the situation determines the attributes everyone will roll, and your check will affect everyone who helped you. Now that you know how group checks work, have the group choose a leader and for the navigation of the ruins and describe what they do. Then resolve the scene using a group check. We suggest a difficulty level of 13 for the leader's check. Oof. If it's successful, they manage to navigate the ruins without trouble. Read the explanation of hit points and mind points below and then proceed to scene 5. Otherwise, you still proceed to scene 5, but the descent takes a toll on the player characters. They lose 5 hit points and 5 mind points. Oh no! Hit points represent fighting spirit and resistance to fatigue. If you have at least 1 hit point, you're still good, but if they reach 0, you might be facing very serious consequences. Mind points represent a character's ability to focus, use magic, and perform special moves. If they reach 0, there's no consequence. Each character begins the game with max HP and MP, labelled max on the character sheet, and the character's current HP and MP will never go above that. Okay, so there's nothing like temporary hit points or temporary magic mind points on that as well. Alright, unlock scene 5. Arms! Look at that image there. How cute is that? Probably cute. It's probably going to kill us. Despite some difficulties, you manage to reach the lower levels of the ruins. The source of the purple light grows closer and closer, and you can see it's a dome-shaped building a few blocks away from where you currently are. Strewn amidst the rubble, you notice the remains of several Elonian Magitech soldiers. Some lie motionless on the ground, others hiss and shake in a shower of sparks as they wander the ruins. It looks like whatever the magical energy damaged your airship also ended up irreparably frying the magical cores of these constructs. What I'd say as well, and again, I don't know if this is a JRPG thing as well, I quite like how the baddies or the villains in this, they've put them as constructs or robots. So it's not like, oh, these people are the evil people. It is like they're constructs. It's like one step away. I mean, again, I know there's always talk about AI and stuff recently, but I think like it's nice to be like, oh, the baddies are. It's like it's not a particular people per se, although Elonian Magitech soldiers, they're part of Elonia, I guess. But I think that's just nice about, oh, they're robots. They've been programmed to fight. They're going to fight regardless. Suddenly, you see a small cloaked figure running towards you, chased by a one-eyed winged monster. She screams, "I'm just a merchant, please help me," in a young girl's voice, and then brushes past you. She clearly wanted to make sure you stand between her and the monster. The sudden movement also draws the attention of 2 less damaged Elonian troopers, which slowly drag themselves towards your position. It looks like you're about to have a fight. Diddly 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 dee. Dun, dun, dun. During the scene, you're going to learn the basic rules for conflict scenes, the most exciting, tense, and challenging part of Fabula Ultima's gameplay. Ugh, not challenging. There's only 2 conflict scenes in this scenario. They take the form of battles. However, the core book also explains how to use conflicts for chases, audiences, infiltration scenes, and more. Let's see how they work step by step. Oh, hello, Hazard Stripes. Hello, my friend. How are you doing? Congratulations on your first episode of Bowies. We had someone in the chat earlier, I don't know if they're still around, saying that they were enjoying it very much. They're still buzzing from the Bowies debut. And I said, well, you should join our Discord and you can say that officially to them. So thanks for sticking by. I just thought I'd check out Fabula Ultima as I didn't have much else to do tonight. So I thought I'd just check that out with the quick start, or the press start, sorry. Then Fabula Ultima is like a JRPG inspired RPG, and it's like a tutorial that we're playing through now, which is quite cool. Determining the participants. The first step of any conflict scene is determining which characters are involved. In this case, it's going to be the player characters against 1 Hexai and 2 Elonian troopers. See for more information on page 30 about these adversaries. Excellent, excellent. Any other creature present on the scene, such as the cloaked girl, a young merchant named Olivia, who the player characters will get to know better during the next scene, can still be a part of the narration, but will not perform actions that influence the outcome screen. Excellent, they're just running off stream. Alright. Oh, look at those weapons, very cool. Excuse me, let me try some of my cold tea. Thank you, and sounds cool. Yeah, actually, I think you'd probably quite enjoy this. I don't know if you were a Final Fantasy guy. I never was. I was a Kingdom Hearts person myself, so it's a similar sort of vibe to it, so to speak. So, initiative. To determine which side has priority during the conflict scene, we perform what's going to be called an initiative group check. It sounds like they're going to be grouped. This is always Dex plus Insight. Check and follow the standard rules for group checks. But each player, whether the leader or supporting character, must apply their initiative modifier to the result of their check. Okay, wait. So, do we pick... I guess you pick someone as the leader? Okay, cool. For instance, Blair's initiative modifier is -2. Oh dear, Blair. They will subtract 2 from the result of their check. During the scene, the leader's... so it's still the group check. Okay, cool. During the scene, the difficulty level for the leader's check will be 10. Interesting. Next up, we have rounds and turns. Conflicts take place in a series of consecutive rounds. During each round, each participant in the conflict gets one turn in which they can act. So far, so good. Some powerful enemies can perform more than one turn per round, but we'll learn more about that in Scene 8. Hopefully we'll unlock that then. Ooh, there we go, sorry. During each round, the player characters and their adversaries will take alternate turns. The first round will go to the side that won the initiative. If the heroes if the group check was successful, or the enemies if it was a failure. Oh, cool. If one side can perform more turns than an adversaries, alternate turns for as long as possible, and then have the side with more turns perform at the end of the round. Cool. So it goes like, maybe heroes first, then enemies, hero, enemy, hero, and then maybe enemy, enemy, depending on how that goes. That's quite cool. Turns aren't tied to a specific character. Round after round, you can assign turns to however you prefer between participants, as long as everyone gets their turn. For example, in a conflict that involves 4 player characters and 3 enemies, the enemies have the initiative. The turn order, will be enemy, PC, enemy, PC, enemy, PC, PC. Sounds good. GM, it's often better to have the enemies act and seem in the same order round after round, as it makes it much easier to remember. In this scene, for example, we'll say that they always suggest that the Hexeye takes its turn before the 2 troopers. That's good. Final Fantasy 7/8 and 9 are in my top 10 games ever. Yeah, you know what? You strike me as a Final Fantasy 7 guy. I think I remember seeing Final Fantasy film, and I'm like, Sephiroth versus Cloud, and then there's again, I don't know her name, that the lady appears in some sort of scene and inspires Cloud to beat Sephiroth, and I was like, I bet that lady's passed away. The lady in red, I want to say her name's Fluffy. I don't think that's her name. Actions. During their turn, a character may perform a single action. In their first conflict, the actions available to all characters are attack, guard, spell, and skill. Attack, you attack with a weapon you have equipped. Perform an accuracy check using the attributes indicated by the weapon, including any modifiers, with a difficulty level equal to the target's defense. Okay, that makes sense. So defense is like an AC of some sort. And yeah, accuracy check would be, so it would tell you which of the attributes you could put together when using it. If the attack is successful, you inflict the damage based on the accuracy check's high roll, HR, which is the highest number amongst those shown on the dice rolled on the check. So yeah, for those people who've just joined the channel, join the VOD, the game mechanic is that you'd pick 2 of your attributes out of the 4, add the dice that are associated with it, roll them, and then that will be the number you get. So for example, if you were doing, say, I don't know, something that involves sort of dexterity and insight, you would roll, and your dexterity was like a D8, and then your insight was a D10. You'd roll both of those things and you'd add them together, and then compare, and then add any modifiers, either pluses or minuses, and then check it against the DL level, difficulty level. And then, I guess on top of that, once you've done the accuracy roll, then you can check the highest number. So that's quite cool. Damage caused by attack is then subtracted from the target's hit points. Oh, it's literally going to say it here, isn't it? Fiona, you got to read a bit more. So for this great sword that Lavinga's has, Lavinga, is dexterity plus might plus 2. Since they have a 8 in dexterity and a D10, she will roll 1d8 plus 1d10 plus 2 when attacking. If the attack hits the defense, the damage is listed as, oh my god, I roll plus 10. That means if she rolled a 4 and a 9, weapons damage would be 19 damage. Ooh, brutal. Sometimes an attack can target more than one creature at a time. See Edgar's barrage score, because he's got a gun that can shoot more people, right? In this case, you perform a single accuracy check and compare it to the defense of each target to determine which creatures are hit and which creatures are missed. The damage and effects will be the same for each target hit by an attack. Okay, so it's simple there. Yes, her. Still heartbroken. Yeah, I hear it's quite sad. I think I remember watching someone playing Final Fantasy 7, and then they meet her for the first time, and I was like, who's the one that passes away? Aerith. Guard. You focus on defending yourself and gaining resistance to all types of damage until the start of your next turn, or until the end of the scene, whichever happens first. See below for more information on resistances. So when you guard, you provide cover. You may decide to provide cover for another creature of your choice present in the scene. If you do so, that creature cannot be targeted by melee attacks until the start of your next turn. This effect will also end if you get reduced to 0 hit points or if the scene ends. You cannot cover a creature if that creature is already covering something else. So you can't be like constantly bodyguarding in the way. In this tutorial, creatures can have or receive 2 types of affinities towards various damage types: air, bolt, dark, earth, fire, ice, light, physical, or poison. Vulnerable. The creature loses twice the normal amount of hit points if they are vulnerable, but resistant means that they halve the normal damage rounded down. The 2 affinities cancel each other out, so if a creature is vulnerable to fire, performs a guard, for example, they'll have a neutral affinity towards fire until the start of their next turn. Yes, that makes sense. Yes, sorry, I was like, oh, weird. Alrighty, I gotta go get some sleep. Thank you for this, Fiona. I've been meaning to have a read of these types of rules for a while. We'll catch you up on the VOD and hopefully catch up at some point this week. Yes, absolutely, JC Darcy. Please get some well-deserved rest and I will chat to you later. And yeah, thanks for joining. I very much appreciate it. Spell. You cast one of the spells you know, spending the appropriate amount of mind points. Mind. I always think of the mind mangler when I think of that. Mind. Spells always list the type, the type, and the magic, and the maximum number of targets they can affect. If you use a spell on one or more targets, the MP cost will increase proportionally. Ah, interesting. For example, a single use of Blair's Luck spell can target up to 3 creatures simultaneously, but costs 10 mind points per target. Oof, yeah, those are hefty spells. Offensive spells function similarly to attacks. They require a magic check, whose difficulty level is equal to the target's magic defense. Ah, so that's why you have 2 different types of, you got defense and then magic defense. That makes sense. And deal damage based on the check's high roll. If an offensive spell has multiple targets, you perform a single magic check, compare it to the magic defense of each of these targets, which have hit and which haven't been hit, and then the damage and effects will be the same for each target hit by the spell. So yeah, everyone gets the same damage regardless if, it doesn't matter, you don't have to roll for individual things. That makes sense. And finally, skill. You use a skill that requires an action to activate, such as Blair's Encourage, or Lavinga's Shadow Strike. Lavingna. Some skills also require you to spend hit points or mind points. 0 hit points. When a creature falls to 0 hit points during a scene, the consequences vary depending on whether the creature is a player character or a non-player character. If a player character falls to 0 hit points, they lose concentration, consciousness until the end of the scene and drop out of conflict. They also receive 2 Fabula points. In this game, it's called surrendering. Your life is spared, but you lose the ability to influence the scene and might suffer additional narrative consequences. We'll discuss this in greater detail during Scene 8. So yeah, that feels very much like JRPG. You don't die outright. It's it's like all of your party has fainted, and then you're like, oh, okay, fine. Non-player characters. The Hex Eye is slain or flees the scene. Whoever delivers the final blow gets to describe what happens, and the Elonian troops crumble to the pieces in a shower of sparks. This ends if all the player characters fall to 0 hit points, or if all the enemies fall to 0 hit points. Whenever one of these happens, proceed to Scene 6. Game master information can be found on this page. Okay, so this is the Elonian troop. Oh, what a great image! That's the image on the main core book as well. The damaged shell of a Magitech soldier created and programmed by the Elonian Empire. Irreparably overloaded with arcane energy rising from the crater, it swings its electrified halberd at whoever is in range. There you go, you got the 4 stats there, you got Dex, Insight, Might, and Willpower. You've got its defense, that's physical defense, you have to get over a 7. Magic defense is slightly higher, it seems. Okay, so this kind of makes sense with the Hex Eye. Flying monsters that plague the ruins of the crater. Some say they are the result of the ancient cataclysm. They use shadow wings to instill the dread in the hearts of their prey and then finish them off with their claws. Oh, it feels like it feels very much like Pokemon, isn't it? Like an entry in the Pokemon thing. So I'm just reading that special there. Critical core failure. If the Elonian troop has 30 hit points or less than half, targets hit by the halberd strike also suffer the slow effect. Oh no. Slow status effect, sorry. What are Shadow Wings? So Shadow Wings is an offensive spell. One target, 10 mind points. Target suffers high roll plus 10 dark magic and suffers the shaken status effect. Ooh. So this, when we talked about the status effects before, so each of the there's 6 status effects, but 4 of them reduce one of the die sizes down, and then 2 of them reduce 2 of the abilities down by a die size. Very cool. In Fabula Ultima, the game master is strongly encouraged to determine the targets for most NPCs at random. This alleviates some of the responsibility and makes battles fairer. That is fair indeed. Enemy tactics. The troopers should perform the halberd strike against a random target. The hexblade should perform shadow wings on targets who aren't already shaken, or use claws against the player characters who are already suffering from one or more status effects. Makes sense. Oh, since this is your first battle in Fabula Ultima, here's a quick list of the principles that the game master should always follow. Tell the players when an adversary spends mind points to cast a spell. Tell the players when damage is dealt to an enemy manages to hit a vulnerability or is reduced by a resistance. Absolutely. And tell the players when the enemy is down to half their hit points or less. It feels very video gamey, right? It's like, oh, that was super effective. Oh, that was less effective. Be transparent and give players the ability to make informed tactical choices. Remember that even if you are controlling the enemies, the goal is not to beat the player characters, but rather give them chances to work together and overcome obstacles. Tactical advice for the players. Because your group has probably never played this game before, here are some useful tips to give them throughout the battle when you see them struggling. Blair's Encourage skill can temporarily increase the character's attribute, which can be useful to counterbalance and reduce die size caused by a status effect. Cassandra can use Soaring Strike to hit the flying Hexi and use Bone Crunch to sacrifice damage to inflict weak on the Elonian troopers to reduce their ability to hit and deal damage. Edgar can use his pistol to hit the flying Hexi, then use Warning Shot to sacrifice damage and inflict slow on the creature to make it less accurate. And then finally, Lavigny should use Shadow Strike to deal massive damage whenever possible. If her hit points get too low, Blair can use Encourage to heal her a bit and boost her die for the next action. How cool is that? That even for the scenario, it's like, okay, it's like a video game. You can understand like where things are tactical, so here's some advice for the players. I really like that. And it encourages people to work together as well using their different skills. Nice. Scene 6, Olivia. Unlock. This scene will begin differently depending on the outcome of the battle. If all the player characters were reduced to 0 hit points, the young merchant will hurriedly rummage in her bag until she finds a large yellow-coloured stone, which she then breaks in half. The resulting light sends the Elonian troopers flying and scares away the Hexi. Didn't do that earlier, did she? She will then rush to see if anyone is badly wounded. If all the enemies are reduced to 0 hit points, the young merchant will emit a sigh of relief and approach the player characters. Look at that! Oh! Looks great. It looks great. Man, look at all the stuff she's got as well. So many bags. Feels very anime as well. In both cases, any player character whose HP reaches 0 during the previous scene will now regain consciousness with the amount of HP equal to half the maximum hit points rounded down. At this point, address the players and group and read aloud. The girl pulls back her hood and 2 round ears emerge from her hair, similar to those of a bear. She smiles. Howdy, thanks for the help. Name's Olivia, travelling merchant. If you're interested in business, I might have a thing or two in my backpack. Ah, so this is the saving screen bit where we can buy stuff. During the scene, player characters can chat to Olivia, purchase goods using Zenit, use inventory points to recover from the previous battle, and more. Zenit is a universal currency across all the various worlds of Fabula Ultima. Fair enough. Inventory points. So this is what I always thought this was interesting earlier. So inventory points are an abstraction of the player character's bag of consumables. Each character begins the game with a maximum IP, labelled max on their character sheet. Their character's current IP will never go above that maximum value. If it reaches 0, it has no consequences. IP can be used to spend and create a variety of consumable items and use them on the spot. In this tutorial, characters have access to remedies, elixirs, and tonics. Note that different characters cannot combine the inventory points in order to create consumable item. It must come from a single person's IP. That makes sense. Okay. It's almost like, yeah, crafting or doing the alchemy bit in like Baldur's Gate. Okay. For example, if Blair has 2 inventory points left and Cassandra has 1 inventory point left, they cannot combine them to create this remedy. Ooh, fair enough. IP can be recharged when you are inside a settlement or you have access to a merchant, such as Olivia yourself. Normally the cost is 10 zenith per inventory point, but prices may vary. Ah, how interesting. Free interaction. Player characters can now freely interact with their surroundings. They might want to chat to Olivia, purchase goods from her, examine the remains of their enemies, and discuss what to do. This is the first scene where the characters have complete freedom, a key aspect in role-playing games. You are the game master, use the rules and tools we've provided up to now, and combine them with the information on the next 2 pages to manage the scene. How cool is that? That's they're built like even though it's like on rails. There's still enough to be going on. It still feels like there's a lot of freedom if you're a player in this. So I think this is pretty good. So once the group decides to press forward, you can move on to scene 7. I will say, I'm going to guess that on the next page it's going to tell us like what Olivia's deal is, and maybe she can give some information rather than just sell items, you know. But it only gets worse from here. Oh, and this must be where the red bit comes in, because I think we said at the beginning there's a little bit that talks about like anything that's in red you don't read out to the players. You keep it secret, so you should read it yourself as the game master. And I said, like, I think that's really cool to highlight that sort of stuff, but you might need to put it in a different colour just for the red, green colour blindness, or just make it really obvious. I assume that's what this bit is here. Soon enough, the player characters will face the ultimate challenge of this tutorial. Because of this, we strongly suggest everyone heals the character completely using remedies, elixirs, and tonics. Afterwards, the group should take advantage of Olivia's presence and spend it to recharge inventory points. Ah, interesting. That's quite cool as well. It's like, yeah, rather than like going, oh, I have 5 healing potions, so but how do I give it to so-and-so? It makes it on you to do I'm going to spend inventory points. I wonder if using an inventory point, is that a skill? If you're in combat, is it like a bonus action that you can just do, or have it to hand? I don't know. It hasn't said so far. So Olivia. The young girl is part of the Panpuk species, a lineage of humans with earth sign ears. She's quite tiny, but is holding a heavy backpack filled with a variety of tools and goods. Oh, how cool. Like Cassandra, Olivia belongs to a humanoid species with an animal traits. Oh, what's Cassandra? I didn't know Cassandra had... Well, I didn't really read it, did I? Fabula Ultima doesn't list Fabula Ultima doesn't feature a list of standard species. Your character can possess whatever traits they would like. It will have no impact on the character's ability. Sounds good. Olivia was recently in Armoridia, which is Lavinga's home. I don't think that's her name. Lavigna's hometown. She was travelling to Denovia through the woods, but decided to take a detour inside the crater to look for valuable items. Upon hearing this, Lavigna will likely want to know more about our Armoridia's situation. This is up to the game master to invent on the spot, but use the player's answers from scene 2 to introduce new information about Armoridia. Armoricia. We'll get there eventually, guys. Olivia actually found a precious magical ingredient known as a thunderstone inside a nearby ruin, but if the PCs were defeated during the previous scene, she's already used that treasure to save herself and the group. In that case, she will bluntly point out that they owe her a big favour. Oh dear. What are you selling? Olivia has several potions and remedies. In game terms, players may purchase inventory points from her. If the group managed to defeat the enemies without her help during the previous scene, she gives them a discount. Oh, that's quite nice. On the other hand, if she used the Thunderstone, she'll ask for 20 zenith per inventory point. This is a good example of a minor narrative consequence following a defeat. Yeah, I guess that's, when you fainted that, you lose a certain amount of credits in Pokemon, don't you? Other than that, Olivia will be open to selling this Thunderstone, but only for 1,000 zenith, an amount that the group can't really afford right now. Can you come with us? Olivia definitely doesn't want to come any closer to the bottom of the crater and will leave the area as soon as possible. If someone mentions Leon and the damaged airship, she would head in that direction. And if the group returns to the airship later, they might find both Leon and Olivia there. Oh, of course, Cassandra. She's got cat ears. I forgot. Did you see what happened here? Olivia saw 2 people heading towards the large dome-shaped building near the bottom of the crater. A woman wearing a long cloak who carried a ivory white spear, an incredibly massive person clad in heavy magic tech armor. If Cassandra is present, she will realize the description of the white spear matches the weapon used by her mentor, Desdemona. She'll ask for more details about. If she asks for more details about the woman, Olivia will say that her armor didn't look like that of an Elonian soldier. Upon seeing the two, Olivia thought it better hide. When the beam of light rose from the crater, she was inside a nearby building, and the Hex Eye found her slowly after that. Some other interactions, for example, examining the damaged troops. These lifeless Elonian constructs were irreparably damaged by the same magical energy that struck the airship. They will be recognized as part of that force that attacked Armoridia. Yep. Edgar may salvage Magitech parts worth 400 zenith, which can serve as materials for future inventions. And the core book has rules for future projects and inventions. You could also search the ruins. By searching it, you will discover more about the ancient place that we're in and the cataclysm that befell it. You're free to invent and describe what's found here, but you should use it based on players' answers given in Scene 2. Fair enough. I will say, I know I'm already mucking up these names. I guess it's tricky because obviously some of this is obviously like it's just the tutorial scenario. Always have a pronunciation guide because it's for me. I need it. Scene 7. Interlude. Right, now you've learned all the basics of how to play Fabula Ultima, and you're approaching the most challenging scene in the tutorial. It's a battle against the two villains. This is the perfect time to take a short break, review the rules you've learned up to now, and when you're ready you can read the advanced rules below and then move on to Scene 8. So already in this tutorial it builds in a break. How cool is that? So, when a character performs a check, the Game Master may apply a +2 or -2 to reflect a particularly advantageous or disadvantageous circumstance. This is called a situational modifier and should always be clearly communicated before a check is made. I wonder, I'd need an example of that. I mean, I know what one would be. Like if you were thinking about like the history of like a place you'd come from. If you're from that place, then you get an advantage. But it would be good to have an example there. Maybe they cut it because it is quite a short press start, isn't it? Opportunities. When a character scores a critical success, they receive an opportunity and may spend it for a powerful effect. See the example opportunities below. See, they've given examples there. Similarly, when a character fumbles a check, the enemy gets an opportunity to spend it against the characters or someone else. Support checks never generate opportunities. And you can come up with custom-made ones, but they are subject to the GM's approval. So what's an example? The next check made by you or one of your allies gets a +4 bonus. Ooh. Creature of your choice suffers a status effect of stays shaken, slow, or weak, which ties into those 4 abilities that we had, attributes we saw. You may ask the Game Master a single question about something or someone that is part of the scene. And the Game Master must answer truthfully, but if there's no predetermined answer, you can invent one on the spot. That answer becomes part of the canon going forward. Fill or erase 2 sections of the clock. Oh, that's coming up next, I guess. And add 1 emotion to your bonds or create a new bond with an emotion. Okay, that's quite cool. Oh, that'd be an interesting one to do. I guess it depends on what you're doing with the successes and stuff. That's quite good. Spending Fabula points to alter the story. So you already know that Fabula points can be spent to re-roll dice and improve a result during checks, but there's a third way to use them as well. Well, I like it when it splits it up like that. That way I actually have an example of it. 'Cause sometimes it has it all at the beginning, and you're like, oh, but I don't know anything about these bits yet. So coming back to it and be like, hey, this is something else you could do. That's really good design. I really like that. A player may spend 1 Fabula point to introduce a narrative element or alter a scene to their advantage. This follows a few basic rules. So the change you propose affects something introduced by the Game Master or by the scenario, you need the permission of the Game Master. Similarly, if the change you propose affects a player character, you need the corresponding player character's permission. You cannot contradict a narrative element introduced by yourself or somebody else. You should add to the story and not remove something. Yes and, not no but. Any mechanical consequences of the narrative events, such as damage or status effects, are exclusively determined by the Game Master. For example, a player may spend a Fabula point to declare that the villain is secretly another player character's father, but to do so they would need permission from both the Game Master, who introduced the villain, and the player who controls the player character. Oh, I like that though. I like working with people like that, as long as it's okay, but also makes sense. I agree with that. Given the amount of... Oh, another example would be spending a Fabula point to have an arcane mechanism short circuit and fill the battlefield with static energy. The Game Master might decide this translates to 10 bolt damage to every creature, or a vulnerability to bolt damage for all creatures until the end of the current round, but that's their call to make. The player cannot request a specific effect. I definitely think they can suggest stuff. But, yeah, it's a conversation, isn't it? Given the amount of freedom this rule brings to the table, we understand if it's a bit intimidating, especially for the Game Master who needs to reconcile the player's narrative description with the mechanics of the game. Oh. But because of this, we provide a few examples of what could be done with Fabula points, and how the Game Master could handle it mechanically. So, we've got allies. If the group introduces one or more allied creatures to fight alongside them, those creatures should attack once per round, dealing the 10 damage to the appropriate type, and maybe taking 1 or 2 hits in place of a player character before retreating. Keep it simple. 100% agree with that. Damage. If a narrative element deals damage to a single creature, it should deal 20 damage of the appropriate type. If it deals it to multiple creatures, it should be 10 to each. Status effects. If it hinders one or more creatures' ability to perform well in the scene, you should have it that those creatures suffer a status effect that feels appropriate, such as poisoned or a toxic fog, or for a toxic fog, or slow for damaged armor that gets in the way of their movements. And then finally, elemental tricks. If a narrative element would change the type of damage dealt by an attack or spell, or give one or more creatures resistance or vulnerability to an element, that effect should last for a single round at most. Yeah, those are some really good guidelines there. I really very much appreciate that. Oh, we're still going. We've got like another 14 pages left. Okay. We haven't got to the final scene yet. 3 new conflict actions have been made available during conflicts for inventory, objective, and study. Inventory, you can spend inventory points to remedy to create a remedy, elixir, or tonic, and administer that item to yourself or an ally of your choice. But that's an action, right? So you either choose to do that, or you choose to fight, or you choose to do your skill, etc. Now, this is the clock thing, I think. So, you attempt to make progress towards a main objective or side objective within the scene. First, you should describe what you want to accomplish to the Game Master, and then the GM decides whether it's a simple check will be enough to achieve your goal, or if a clock is needed. So, Blades in the Dark did clocks. In Fabula Ultima, we use clocks to keep track of approaching dangers, and long-term objectives require multiple checks. For example, if the heroes are trying to persuade the enemy to a truce, the Game Master should use a clock to represent the group working together towards that goal in the scene. Clocks generally feature between 4 to 12 sections. They are always visible to the whole table. Large clocks indicate events that are unlikely to happen, or objectives that are hard to achieve. Once a clock is part of the scene, anyone can attempt to influence it by performing an objective action and describing what they do. The Game Master will decide the attributes and difficulty level of each check based on the circumstances. When the outcome of a check causes a clock to advance or turn back, ooh, excellent, the number of sections that get filled or erased is equal to 1, plus 1 for every 3 points that the result of the check beats the difficulty by. Oof. So for example, a result of 15 on the check with a difficulty of 10 means the clock will advance 2 sections, 1 for the success and another for beating the check by 3 points. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Very much appreciate that. So 4 section clocks indicate minor objectives, such as granting your allies resistance to a specific type of damage for 2 or 3 rounds. 6 to 8 are the most common type and indicate major objectives, such as preventing an enemy from using a specific attack or spell till the end of the scene. And then 10 to 12 clocks indicate resolutive objectives, which end the conflict with a victory for the side who completed them. Okay, interesting. I've not really used clocks before, and I know, like I said, Blades in the Dark use it. Shiver also uses it as well, their Doom clock. In a way it's a little bit different, but you know, same idea. Counting down, we fulfill something. When you establish a clock, remember to tie it to an objective and not a specific approach. This way, anyone can contribute regardless of their attributes and skill. While some approaches will undeniably prove more effective than others, you should never frame a clock in such a way that one or more players feel like they can do nothing to influence it. How interesting. I think that's a really cool way of putting it, actually. They are extremely flexible tool that allows you to create as many creative solutions for the same situation and pursue side objectives within a scene. For example, you could run a chase scene where the pursuers and the fugitives each have their own clocks, or an audience where two opposing sides have clocks of different sizes because one already enjoys the favour of the public. Okay. Experimenting with clocks is one of the most satisfying aspects of Fabula Ultima. Very cool. Eye is very itchy. Typical, huh? Typical. Right, we're almost there. And finally, study. You focus your attention on a creature and perform an insight roll check to learn more about them. Depending on the result, the game master reveals 10 or higher, the creature's species, so we call them species here, okay. Maximum HP and maximum magic points. 13 or higher, all the above plus the traits, attributes, defense, magic defense, damage resistance, and damage vulnerabilities. 16 or higher, all the above plus the creature's attack and spells, so you get the full sheet. It's very much like, I can't remember what that monk skill is where you learn their weaknesses. A player character may only study the same creature once. After you made the check, that's what you've managed to understand. You'll have to learn the rest through trial and error. Very cool. I like that a lot. But between you and me, enemy traits. So in Fabula Ultima, adversaries have traits just like player characters do. If you play the game as the game master, take these into account when establishing the difficulty level for checks or assigning situational modifiers. For example, if a player character wields a fire-infused weapon and attempts to intimidate an enemy with the Afraid of Fire trait, the difficulty level for that check should be lowered. That makes sense. The previous conflict featured simplified enemy profiles which did not include traits. In the following scene, enemies will instead have traits just like the full game. So you're sort of building up to like using all these things. Again, it's that whole unlocking bits of the character sheet as we go from there. Very cool. Alright, the final battle, Scene 8, unlocking. You make your way through the ruins at the bottom of the crater towards a large dome-shaped building. From up close, you can see it is made of stone and brass. That's going to be important for the story. Streaked by vertical gaps glowing with the purple light. It resembles an engine more than it does a building. Upon entering, you see the insides consist of a singular circular room. Its roof supported by a massive central pillar covered in arcane symbols. Judging by the scraps scattered on the ground, the pillar was originally encased in brass. Its lower section has been smashed by a powerful impact. Standing near the pillar, a tall woman, she's important, she's tall, her grey hair tied in a single braid. Her left hand grips a long ivory white sphere. Her right hand holds an item that resembles a large pocket watch. Moving slowly towards you, as if to protect her, is a massive warrior in an onyx black Magitech armour. The woman turns to look at you with a sad expression on her face. If Cassandra is present, she will recognise the woman as her Dementor. As her mentor, Desdemona. If Lavigna's present, the magic black tech armour worn by the imposing warrior will remind her of the craftsmanship combined with Elonia's Magitech science. I'd have preferred to take the compass of the beyond and avoid unnecessary violence, sighs woman. My name is Desdemona Perses, yeah. I wish we could have met under different circumstances. Unfortunately, I cannot allow you to live after you seeing my brother, and I here. If Cassandra is present, Desdemona will look at her and add, "You, why are you here?" Oh, you've got to be very dramatic in the JRPGs, haven't you? "Please don't let me choose between you and my family, not when I've finally been reunited with Tristan. Leave, Cassandra. Forget you ever saw me here. I will not take your life." Incredible how different these two are. The final conflict of the scenario is about to begin. The player characters are facing Desdemona and her brother Tristan, whose spirit has been brought back from the dead and is trapped inside them a magical Magitech body, a powerful Magitech body. Read the new rules for villains and Ultima points. Interesting. Ultima points ask for the villains, whilst we have Fabula points for the players. Elite enemies and zeros together with the players, and then take a few minutes for yourself and then read the information on Desdemona and Tristan starting on page 44. Meanwhile, the group can discuss goals and possible strategies for conflict. If you are the games master, never be afraid to call short breaks when you have to come up with a good reaction to a player character's choices or to review your notes about the game. Once you're all ready, form an initiative group check where the difficulty is 13 for the leader and begin the conflict. At this point, you and the players are free to take the scenario in whatever direction you wish. It is now your story. So, villains and Ultima points. Desdemona and Tristan are both villains, formidable adversaries that act as a counterpoint to the player characters. A good villain is always connected in some way to one or more player characters. For instance, Desdemona is a person from Cassandra's past, and Tristan is relevant to both Lavigny and Edgar due to his magic tech armor crafted from the metal. In Fabula Ultima, the players will create characters with heroic goals and motivations, and the game master will create villains who negate or subvert those very same goals and motivations. The clash between conflicting visions is the true heart of the game. So just like heroes have Fabula points, villains have a resource of their own called Ultima points. After performing a check, if the villain didn't roll a fumble, they may spend one Ultima point to invoke one of their traits and re-roll one or both of their dice using the new result. So they won't get those other two things, whereas the players get 3. They get traits. They don't get the origins, and they don't get the motivation one, I think. I can't remember what it's called now. During a conflict scene, a villain may use an action and spend an Ultima point to instantly recover from all status effects and gain 50 mind points. Ooh, that's great. And they may spend 1 Ultima point to leave the scene safely. Oh, this is Lloyd from Legend of Dragoon all over again. Oh, brutal. Preventing anyone from interfering with their escape. They can also do this upon reaching 0 hit points. Ooh. Ultima points are powerful, but they can't recharge them. And a villain with no Ultima points just becomes like any other non-player character. That is good to know. Good to know. Villains can be minor, major, or supreme. Both Desdemona and Tristan are minor villains, which means they have 5 Ultima points each. Okie dokie. Look at that image! Oh, how cool! Oh, that is very cool. Yeah, again, I guess if I'd be running this scenario or rerunning a game of Fabula Ultima, I definitely would be making sure I have those the Final Fantasy fight music on in the background for sure. The elite enemies. Desdemona and Tristan are both elite enemies. Basically, each of them counts as 2 normal enemies at the same level. They have twice as many hit points as normal and can perform 2 turns per conflict round. In this conflict, we suggest having Desdemona perform her turns before Tristan in each round. So say, for example, there are 4 player characters and they manage to succeed on the group initiative check. This is what it would look like. So PC, Desdemona, PC, Desdemona, PC, Tristan, PC, Tristan. Absolutely. In the instance of game balance, if there are only 3 players in the group, we suggest only having Demona as the elite enemy. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay, I really like how it gives you advice about how to shape the combat as you're going through it, and it seems very straightforward. Take your time. The battle against Desdemona and Tristan can be quite challenging for both the players and the game master. This is your first contact with the full Fabula experience after all. Or Fabula Ultima experience after all. Our advice is to be patient and take your time to strategize, discuss actions and effects, and figure things out. Once you're comfortable, start experimenting. Use Fabula points in creative ways to add epic descriptions and bring out each character's personality. Very cool. 0 hit points. During the scene, you'll be using the full rules for falling to 0 hit points. If a non-player character falls to 0 hit points, their fate is decided whoever dealt the final blow. They might flee, be captured, or die. Villains with at least 1 Ultima point will almost always spend it to safely leave the scene, usually cursing the heroes and plotting revenge. There's suggestions on how to do this with Desdemona or Tristan falls on page 47. Ooh. Okay, so if a player character falls to 0 hit points, they may choose to surrender or sacrifice themselves. Surrender. Character will lose consciousness, receive 2 Fabula points, and suffer a narrative consequence imposed by the game master. Here's an example below. The consequence may be tied to the current conflict or something completely unrelated. Suffice to say that the world got a bit worse because the hero accepted defeat. A character whose surrenders cannot be killed and will awaken at the start of the next scene they're a part of, with an amount of hit points equal to half their max. Okay, so again, it's that whole sort of like fade to black bit. However, we also have sacrifice. If a character loses their life but achieves a major victory within the scene, the player and the game master can narrate this epic moment together. We encourage you to go overboard with your description because the character will be permanently lost after the scene. They willingly gave up their life and cannot be brought back from the dead. Sorry, I heard something. It made me jump. Sample consequences for surrendering. So, okay, so this is something that you lose. So either the character is separated from the group, you lose something, you erase their current theme and replace it with anger, doubt, guilt, or vengeance. Oh, okay. They're not really. I guess it's just examples and stuff. They don't really mean anything. They don't add anything mechanically. That's the theme. That's the bit I was missing from before. You erase one of your bonds and replace it with a bond towards a character chosen by the GM, and it starts with one emotion of hate, inferiority, or mistrust. And the enemy gets to make a major move. A village is conquered. A precious artifact is taken. A terrible ritual complete. The seal on ancient evil is broken, and so on. Ooh, secret information for the game master only. So this is an example of the red pages. Again, this actually doesn't look that obvious that it like. Certainly on my screen, maybe if you printed it out, it would be a bit more obvious, but yeah, it's a bit light on that colour, so I definitely would need like a big symbol saying like, this is GM only. Maybe not in red, maybe like in purple or yellow's a really hard one as well, green maybe, I don't know. Running the scene. In its essence, this scene is a boss fight. The heroes confront powerful antagonists and must work together in order to emerge victorious. Contrary to what happens in typical video game, however, Fabula Ultima allows for a variety of creative approaches to the scene, and the story will go on even if the group is defeated. There is no game over screen. You will live on with the consequences of your failure. Very cool. You take a drink. As the game master, use these 4 pages as reference when running the scene, but do not hesitate to make the characters yours and put your own spin on their story. Desdemona and Tristan. The basic concept for this pair of villains is that after Tristan's death, Desdemona desperately tried to find a way to bring him back to life. Recognizing her skill in battle, the Elonian Empire offered a way to help. They used magical science to trap Tristan's soul inside a colossal armor, which could only be created from the metal in it's American. American metal. Tristan is unable to speak and his armor is empty. His spirit is bound to the metal itself. Afterwards, Desdemona heard of an artifact known as the Compass of Beyond, seemingly capable of linking the world of the living with the world of souls, and rumoured to be lost during the fall of Megiddo. Maybe it is Megiddo. Megiddo, I don't know. Thus, she convinced Elonia to make a move against Donovia. When the heroes arrive on the scene, the compass has already been forcefully extracted from inside the Great Pillar. There's clearly some adjustment there going on there. The Great Pillar at the centre of the room. Desdemona plans to use this artifact to navigate the afterlife and fully resurrect Tristan. Fearing that Elonia will take the compass from her, Desdemona must make sure no one knows she has it. Unfortunately, the player characters already do. Everything else about these 2 characters is up for you to invent. That's cool. So wait, why have they brought... Why? Yeah, I mean... Then why go for this? I guess it's not... Yeah, I guess the Elonian Empire's already brought him back a little bit, but to bring him fully back, Desdemona needs to find it. So yeah, it is very much like Full Metal Alchemist. Okay. Ooh. Cassandra's dress. Oh, hello. Lob to be. Nice to see you there. Cassandra's choice. If Cassandra is present, Desdemona will try initially to convince her to leave, and then perhaps even attempt to win over to her side. If Cassandra is not swayed, Desdemona will fight against her as normal. If Cassandra decides to leave, you should keep the player involved in the scene. One of you might control Desdemona, and the other might control Tristan, for example. Oh, that's really cool. If Cassandra decides to betray the group and join Desdemona's side, she will still be controlled by the player for the rest of the battle, which is likely to end in the hero's defeat. Then Cassandra will become a non-player character and leave the group. One of Fabula Ultima's main tenets is that the player characters are expected to do the right thing and act as heroes. If they betray the group, they simply aren't a player character anymore. The player will create a new hero, and their previous character will become an NPC under the game master's control, and this would make an interesting villain. You need to tell the players that before you play the game, though, because I love PvP, but you gotta say this is a really big decision. Are you really going against the group? So you have to let them know, because they might go, no, I feel this is what I want to do. So that's the only thing I'd say there. So you could try reasoning with Desdemona. Negotiating a truce is only possible if the group offers to let her leave the compass and never reveal that they saw her and Tristan here. Still, reaching this compromise should be a 10-section clock with a typical difficulty level of 13. Oof, that's a hard one. If a player character falls to 0 hit points and surrenders during the scene, follow the advice on page 43. Their theme might become anger now because you witness Elonia stealing the metal for its experiments. Cassandra might develop a bond of hatred or at the very least mistrust towards Demona, and so on. Above all else, choose dramatic consequences that allow the characters to grow and become more complex. If the entire group is defeated, the last attack hits the center pillar and the dome begins to crumble. Desdemona and Tristan will take the compass and leave, believing the player characters to be crushed during the collapse. You should then describe the player characters how they managed to escape the building before it's too late. No checks required, they've already lost enough. That's quite cool. I mean, I think Olivia would return then, right? She would be like the one that comes and tries to get you up. Oh, and here's the battle information for the players. So, it'd be nice if we had the image on there of both of them, but like the one before, but I understand it's trying to fit everything else. It's interesting, so it's two villains on one sheet. Again, probably to save space, but you could have easily put the image in there, I guess. What have we got? Spells. Ventus. Air damage. Ooh. Yeah, it's not as much information about them either because you've had them previously. Okay, cool. And then, you got your vulnerabilities and resistances there for both of them as well. I don't think that was on the other one. Special rules as well. Oh, look, that's the reaction there. So magic counter. After a player character casts a spell, Tristan automatically performs the Iron Gauntlet against that character. This attack takes place after the effects of the spell have been fully resolved. If it hits, it deals exactly 10 physical damage. Ooh, terrible. Terrifying. That's quite good though. That's quite interesting. It's got levels there as well. Level 10 humanoid. Level 10 construct. And look how, gosh, quite high level hit points as well. If there are only 3 players, Tristan should have 70 hit points and only perform a single turn in each round, otherwise the battle might be too challenging. That is fair, I guess. Enemy tactics. Desdemona should cast Ventus on as many targets as possible during her first turn of each round. Yeah, I love this. It feels very much like The Monsters Know What They're Doing by Keith Amman, where it talks about, like, I've analysed the character sheet. Here's what they should do, or here's what they're geared towards. Here's some suggestions for how they fight. I like this sort of thing where it just helps you out as a game master, because sometimes you're like, I don't know what they do. During her second turn, she uses Heart Piercer or Spirit Piercer on a random target. If low on mind, she will use Spirit Piercer instead of Ventress on her first turn in the round, or use one action to spend an ultimate point to recover all status effects and regain 50 mind points. I assume, it says all that action. So yeah, you could either... Yeah, to spend a point, it has to be either or. You can't, it's not, everyone only gets one action. That's what I'm trying to say. Tristan should have performed the Iron Gauntlet against a random target during his first turn of each round, and use his second turn to perform Ground Shaker against 2 random targets. Both Desdemona and Tristan will keep at least 1 ultimate point to leave the scene safely. A good boss always features a good boss fight always features a few twists. So, what have we got? When Tristan falls to 0 hit points, have the player describe the fate of his magic armor. Is it destroyed, sliced in 2, or simply deactivated? Tristan will then spend 1 ultimate point, to save himself. His soul will rise from his domains and dive towards Desdemona, who will catch it in the compass of the beyond. If Desdemona doesn't have a compass, i.e. the heroes took it by completing a clock, Tristan will avoid defeat, but his soul will disperse into the air, perhaps returning later during your adventures. Desdemona will be very unhappy. Ooh. When Desdemona falls to 60 hit points or less, she will leap on top of Tristan and enter his armor. Tristan's fist will grab Desdemona's spear, and the two will all attack as one. Oh, this is almost like evolved. Like an evolved fight. How cool is that? The battle will continue as normal, but Desdemona cannot be targeted by attacks, spells, or skills until Tristan is reduced to 0 hit points, at which point she would exit the armor, catch Tristan's soul inside the compass as described above. When Desdemona falls to 0 hit points, she will immediately spend 1 ultimate point to smash the pillar in the center of the room and use the collapse to cover her escape. How cool is that? What a great end to the fight. I love those twists. That's really awesome. Alright, scene 9 conclusion. You've reached the end of the tutorial scenario. Hooray! You should narrate this final scene together. When we see your heroes rising from what's left of the building, what are they doing? What have they lost? Who is helping who? What emotions can we see in their eyes? Treat this like the closing scene of the pilot episode for an anime series. It should evoke a feeling of adventure, hope and expectation towards the future, but also foreshadow a new threat, for example. The game master could describe a clear sky above the crater where a fleet of Elonian airships can be seen flying towards Novia, or perhaps some ancient terrible creatures stirring within the depths of the ruins. After all, it's always cool to end a play session with a cliffhanger. It's a good time to end the play session and maybe chat about bad game. Needless to say, your story does not have to end here. What will the heroes do now? Will they chase after Desdemona or return to Novia? How will the recent experiences affect each player character? How will their identity, theme, and bonds change after the day? Will the Empire make a move against the Kingdom? What will it take to repair Leon's airship? Will the group find Olivia with him? What kind of creatures still lurk within the crater, and will they remain there? Want to keep playing with these characters and see where the story goes? You can download a free PDF packed with advice and ideas. Oh, where? I'd like to know where that is. Your story will continue on fabulaultima.com. Ah, okay. Maybe I'll check that out now before I forget, because yeah, it's just fabulaultima.com. I bet it's just going to go back to fabulaultima.com. I bet it's just going to go back to that Needful Games website. Yeah, it goes back to that games website. I should have. Nice try. About the full experience. In order to teach you the rules, this tutorial included pre-made characters, a particularly determined world, and a largely linear story. But once the core book of Fabula Ultima is in your hands, the players and the game master can take all these aspects into their hands and create a unique experience together. So what's different and how does it work? Well, here are a few highlights. How cool is this? Actually saying what's different about the preset, so the press start document and the full version right at the end, so you can actually compare. It's like, oh, what do you get in the full version? That's really cool, actually saying it. So, your world. You'll create a fantastic world together. Places like Denovia, the Crater, or the Empire will be something that you invent at your table and placing them on a shared map. You'll define the world's major historical moments and threats, providing the seeds which will then blossom into your adventures. Then, session after session, your world will grow and its map will become rich, with interesting and dangerous locations. Your characters. Players will design each a heroic character, define that character's traits and bonds, and choose a custom list of powerful abilities that give them a unique playstyle. The villain. I am the villain. The game master will then create powerful villains whose desires and machinations threaten the entire world. Enemies who act as a dark mirror to the hero's hopes and beliefs. Your story. Player characters will drive the story forward scene after scene, setting their goals and facing the obstacles on their path. The game master will react to the player's choices and introduce enemies and obstacles that keep the pressure high and prevent the group from easily achieving their goals. Growth and change. Above all, the full game will allow you to level up your characters and see them grow more powerful and complex, and at the same time they will have to risk more and more of what they hold dear in order to make the world a better place. This cycle of growth and transformation, victory and defeat, is the true heart of Fabula Ultima. Embrace it and your story will be unforgettable. Oh, interesting. The credits are in red. How good is that? Oh, continue, yes or no? How sweet. Oh, that's zoom out. That's bit. And then it is QR code. Fantastic. That's always good. Yes, no. Oh, what a great cover as well, huh? There you go. That is Fabula Ultima, a tabletop RPG inspired by Japanese console RPGs. What do we make of it then? Well, I'm actually quite excited. It feels like a really well written, well researched, like it really gets the vibe of these JRPGs, she says, as someone who doesn't really play them. But instantly I can actually see the themes and the core sort of like tenets. I've played enough Kingdom Hearts, I've seen enough Final Fantasy 7 and 10, all the big ones. I can see what comes out. I really like how it is definitely aimed at not only people who are just coming from JRPGs, but also in general for new GMs, and it's just the way it takes it through. Like I was like, because I must say I'm not the biggest fan of having the rules inserted in a scenario, but I felt like this did it so well, and it had that whole thing about like there are going to be 8 scenes, we're going to lock each scene, and then it's going to refer to a little bit on your character sheet, which is very helpful for a brand new system. I also think that the point system is really cool. It feels very video gamey like that. The inventory points stuff, that feels very cool. I think the mechanic is quite interesting as well. I'm always a big fan of like rolling doubles meaning something, so that's really cool. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kinds of classes you can have, like what kinds of concepts you can build. It'll be interesting to see about the world building as well. Like, how much of it is it like a collaboration stuff? Because it feels like it is very collaborative with those sort of backstory questions that you have from the characters. And that's a good point. If you pick a character and you have like a character concept, like does it say, okay, you're a noble? Here's a list of questions that go along with you being a noble, for example. So yeah, overall I think I found it really. Go back to big Fiona Cam. I found it really interesting. I would not have picked this up otherwise, I'll be honest. But actually I feel like definitely a game I could run for people, I think, easily. Again, I feel confident enough to run it, and I feel it's interesting enough as well. Like it's enough to build a bit of crunch, but also it'd be interesting. And I really love the guidance on like how to run the fights. We've got 2 big fights, and then we've got one that's like the full boss fight at the end. I like the idea of the villains being able to like get away, and that death is not the end. Like it's like you fade to black. It's the restart or continue, etc. It's not like you're dead and you get conditions, you're not injured, you're not like maimed in some way, like some other games we've looked at on this channel is. So yeah, really cool, really interesting. Thank you so much if you stayed with me. That was like 2 hours or so. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for watching Too Long Didn't Read Tabletop RPG for Fabula Ultima, which is published by Need Games and written. Make sure I get the name right this time because I know I'm very bad at it. Oh, is that? I guess the credits are at the end. Written by Emanuele Galetto. Written art direction and graphic design along with Erica Vitol. Yeah. Sorry guys, I know. Oh, I think, yeah, my other criticism, just because I always say this on my channel, I wish there were more pronunciation guides for things, just so that we get confident in doing that, and that's on me. I know I'm very bad at doing pronunciations and stuff. But yeah, what an interesting RPG. If you want to find out more, if you want to get your own copy and get the free press start, as it's called, check it out. It's on needgames.it, but also it's on DriveThruRPG you can get for free. And the 2 books that are out just now for Fabula Ultima, the core book is around $17 just now, so probably about £15, and then they've got the Atlas, which is like a little bit more of expansion and maybe a world in there as well, and that seems to be going for about $15, £13 or so. But yeah, go check that out. If you feel like, Fiona, this has been very interesting, what else do you do? And I go, well, I also run What Am I Rolling, which is a twice monthly RPG one-shot podcast where we look at different RPGs like this, and we run them for our show, and then we get people interested, and it's the whole point of it is to educate people on like there are different RPGs out there, and we can run these stories and have a good time. Like I can definitely see this particular game being a really good evening's worth of entertainment, and very minimal prep. Obviously if you read it through, it's absolutely fine, but like easy to get started and easy to get into it, which is what we're all about on Where. We also do the DM's Book Club, which is a weekly book club podcast where we read about some Dungeons and Dragons and discuss how we might include them in our role-playing campaigns. And we make sure we do a proper critique of these things. You know, we're not I don't want to say massive fans, but we're sort of like, we take the criticism, we want to look at it and we want to make our games better. Basically, we read the books so you don't have to. And that's it, really. The final thing I'll say is that if you're like, I want to talk more about Fabula Ultima, come to our Discord. We have a Discord on Where and DMBC stuff. So come and join us there, come say hello. And yeah, there's a little bit of a community that talks about lots of different RPG games and talks about what we've got going on as well. That's all I have for you this evening. Hopefully I'll be back at some point. Maybe I'll be back tomorrow briefly, I'm not so sure. And we'll just go from there. I'm slowly getting back into doing this little stream stuff. But thank you as always. I hope you have a good rest of your weekend wherever you are. And I will see you next time. I'm going to find the end of stream button and wave awkwardly. Bye bye. Oh, that didn't work.